Greetings and welcome to Flanigan's Ecologic. I am your host, Ted Flanigan, and today I welcome Ben Lochtenberg to the podcast. Ben is the founder and managing director of Xero Solar, a company he formed 15 years ago. It's based in El Segundo, California. Ben, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Ted. Happy to be here.
Well, I'm just delighted to get to know you a little bit better. And before we dig into Xero Solar, I want to hear just a touch on your background because I hear there's a very interesting story about your past and where were you actually born, and then how did you move from place to place to get to where you are today?
Okay, well, there's a lot of stories there, and I'll try and be concise. I was born in Melbourne, Australia. My father was Dutch, my mother was Irish, and they had 7 kids. And then in 1973, he was working for a big company based out of the UK. And he was offered a 3-year transfer to London, just outside of London, to work in the new industry called plastics. And so the family moved with 7 kids and landed in England. The 3 years turned into 6. And for various reasons, some of us remained there for school, and he was relocated to Pennsylvania in 1979. I finished up my primary school in England, and in 1982, I went to Penn State.
Yep. And let me cut you off. Now, your dad had some interest. He wrote a book, didn't he, about his?
He wrote a book. Life? He was an interesting guy. He was born in Singapore, Dutch heritage. He was born in 1931. So his father his parents lived through the Depression. My father went around the world with his parents 3 times before he was age 10.
Wow.
All on steamships. So he had, we like to say, he had itchy feet. He was always ready to travel. So, that's why when they asked him in 1973, do you want to move to England? He jumped at it.
Yep.
So he was an interesting guy. Their family went back to Indonesia in 1942, and he was a refugee. And him and his mother were refugees on a refugee boat, and they landed in Perth, Australia as refugees. So he wrote a book called Boy on the Last Boat. It was the last boat out of Jakarta. And he went from there, never saw his father again. So he had an interesting story. He ended up getting a PhD in engineering from Oxford. And he went on to do some incredible things, meet incredible people. And he's a big reason that I'm who I am today.
Yeah, very good. What was it that caused you or got you to form Xero Solar? What was the impetus there?
I don't know. I always say I started it when I was 48, and I'd worked for big corporations for my entire career. And I was in material science, in electronics, semiconductors, printed circuit boards, and that led into solar cell fabrication. And I guess I reached a point where I was kind of, I was comfortable, and maybe too comfortable. And you always have an itching dream to be your own boss, right? And you don't want to work for the man. And you like to do your own things. And so somebody came into my office and said, what do you know about starting a solar company? And I said, I had a secret folder where I would daydream. Some people daydream about opening a restaurant or a florist, or I had this idea to open up a solar company. And I had prepared the plan and the ideas and what to do. And I'd been collecting this information over a couple of years. And they said, why don't you do it? And I said, well, I'm kind of scared. You get comfortable. And then I thought, well, if I'm going to do it, and that just prompted me. And I said, you know what? I talked to talked to Janine, and we said, let's go.
And you were already in California at that point.
I was already in California.
Yeah.
We came to California left Pennsylvania in '86, was in Arizona for about 6 years. And then I moved to the South Bay in 1991.
Yeah.
And so I had a comfortable job working for big companies, had done, various levels of success and experience, but I was probably getting a little stale and complacent. And I thought this would be fun. And I did it. And I tell this story too. One of my brothers gave me a book, and it was a little small book. I don't know what happened to it. I wish I still had it, but it was like an entrepreneur's guide to starting your own company. And the first paragraph said, 9 out of 10 startups fail in the first 12 months. What makes you different? And I was so petrified, I put the book down and I couldn't read anymore. And I was absolutely committed that I am not going to fail. I will do whatever it takes. And I'm still have that mindset.
Yeah.
And so people say, you've made it. No, I haven't made it. I'm still paranoid. And there was another book written by Andy Grove from Intel in the semiconductor industry that said, only the paranoid survive. And his message was always be on the lookout for what could bite you.
Yeah.
Keep one eye over your shoulder and always be looking for what could go wrong. And then you can have a backup plan or do some action to mitigate it.
Right.
If you get complacent and you get comfortable, then you're going to have bad luck.
Well, now you've been doing this for 15 years, and some people call it the solar roller coaster or the solar coaster. I've heard it talked to. Are you happy you chose this industry to jump into?
Yeah. I hate that term. I don't know why I hate that term. Whenever I heard it, I don't like it, and maybe I don't like it because you feel like you don't have any control, and if you don't have any control, then, then you feel helpless. And I don't want to ever feel helpless. I want to feel like I can control and influence my future. But my background is material science and physics and chemistry. And so I went into a solar factory in Camarillo in probably 1994. And it was the original Arco.
I've been
Energy.
there. Yep.
You've been there. I think at the time it was called Siemens Solar.
Mm-hmm.
It went on multiple changes. At some point it was
Solar World, wasn't it? Yep.
And I remember going in there and I was providing them some materials for their wire saws. And they used glycol and they needed some agents to clean off the solar cells. And so we were involved in the material science of that. But I remember seeing in the lobby, they had a couple of pictures, and one of them was this solar camel that had this camel in the desert. And you could probably find it online if you just Google solar camel. And it had a solar panel on it, and there was this doctor who was leading this camel through the Arabian Peninsula. And the other chart they had was a chart that showed grid parity. And it showed the price of solar and the price of conventional energy, and it showed dotted lines where they said one day they will cross.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is amazing. It's like the perpetual energy machine. I'm like, this is like, it's better than nuclear fusion. It's just, this is the key. And I was always interested from just a pure academic science standpoint. How could this happen? How does this work? And so I really like the solar because of the science behind it and the fact that you can get energy from the sun instead of burning something that took, 100 million years to make.
That's right.
Right. And so I always thought from a strictly academic standpoint, that was pretty exciting.
Yep.
So
I remember that facility that you're talking about in Camarillo, and I think they they had a number of early solar panels there as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And I mean, boy, oh boy, nowadays we got what, 600 watt panels that are
Yeah.
just loaded, and they had these tiny little panels
Yeah.
that,
Like the one I've got in the background. That's
yeah,
circa 1977. It's a
yeah,
48-watt panel.
yeah,
And yeah, no, it's, you know, I know probably more about the physics of the photovoltaic process than I need to, but to me, it's pretty cool.
it really
So
is pretty cool. Well, just talking about the ups and downs. You're largely in the residential solar business, I believe, and
mhm.
we've just experienced the end of the residential investment tax credit. Um, for many residential solar companies, that was a huge hit to their company. How did you see that coming? Or how did you adjust for that? How are you doing?
Yeah, I think I've the way I describe it is 15 years ago, the cost of a solar install was
Yeah,
more than double what it is today. And the value of the solar was half or less than what it is today. And so 15 years ago, a solar system on a residential could have a payback of 10 plus years. If you have a 30% tax credit, and back then they had a state cash rebate, you might be able to get it to below 10. You could be in the 8-year payback. Now, because the value of the solar is better and the cost of installing is better, that we were at 7-8 years, or we're at 7 or 8 year payback without the tax credit. So the economics is better than it was 15 years ago with the tax credit. And so we were able to convince customers to make that investment 15 years ago. And people that can't convince customers now, there's we don't necessarily need that tax credit. It's still a good deal.
yeah,
If you can not get the tax credit and you can get a good solar system that's going to last 25 years and pay for itself in 7 or 8 years, maybe less if conventional rates continue to rise, why wouldn't you do it?
yeah, yeah.
Right?
Well, what about monetizing the commercial tax credits? A number of residential solar companies are looking at the third-party ownership
Yep.
models, and is that important to you?
It is. I mean, we have to do it. We
Hmm.
are doing it reluctantly. A lot of my peers, they hate the third party ownership. There's just more paperwork. There's more encumbrances. There's more
Hmm.
steps. They get paid slower. It's just messy. And it is frustrating because the residential tax credit per se is gone, but people can still do it through a third party that's classified as commercial.
Hmm.
Um, I'm looking forward to the day where the whole process is simpler and cleaner and easier, and we don't have to play some of these games and tricks. And solar should be able to stand and compete on its own.
Yeah.
But whenever you have these incentives and these programs, there's a burden. There's a burden on the homeowner. There's a burden on the installer. There's more paperwork. It's a hassle.
Right.
you know. So I'm looking forward to when the commercial and the residential is all gone. Commercial systems, commercial solar system on a big box store or on a CNI, with the accelerated depreciation and the tax credits and the additional tax credit adders, they're paying off in like 3 years.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, it seems to me, having known you a little bit and some of your staff, that you really are your company is largely based on the relationships that you establish with prospective clients and then ultimately your customers, right? You're not seeking to be the lowest cost solution out there.
No.
You're seeking to be the highest quality, the most engaged over time, if I'm understanding it correctly.
Yeah. Yeah. So, price is an important factor, but I always say that you need to be fair on the price,
Hmm.
and you need to be fair on our suppliers. We need to be fair on our employees, and we need to be fair on our customers. And what that means to be fair on the customers is we need to charge a fair price that enables us to stand behind it and be there for them, not just for the 10 years, but for the life of the system.
Yeah.
And I tell people, I say, you know what, we could charge less, but we're going to have to cut some of the support, whether it's project management or service or answering questions down the road. We're not going to be able to do that. And we think that a sophisticated customer will say, you know what, it's worth it. Because everybody focuses on the cash out of pocket when they should be focusing on the lifetime savings, right? And so if a solar system is $30,000, but it's going to save $100,000 over the lifetime, people focus on the initial cost of the 30,000, and they think, well, this was better because I'm going to get it for 28 or 26, or in some cases for 18. But they don't realize they're putting that 100,000 at risk, right? And so you might save money up front, but it might be the most expensive decision you ever made.
That's right.
Right? Because if the system stops working and you can't get a hold of the company and they didn't make enough money to stay in business or to stick around or pick up your phone call, you could be compromising those future savings.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I'll never forget. I came to a couple of your annual your parties that you had for your customers, and I was just frankly blown away because you had, I guess you gave a number to each customer, and it showed how far back some of them went, and there they all were, singing the praises of Xero Solar, pleased, I'm sure, advocating solar to their neighbors and their family and friends. And you have just developed a culture that I don't see that in other solar companies.
No, you see it in other industries.
Hmm.
Whether in other service industries, whether financial or mechanical or in other industries, but you don't see it a lot in solar. And we don't have conventional sales and marketing budgets. We don't pay sales commissions. We don't buy leads. We don't spend a lot on marketing, on promises. We believe that our best advocates are our customers. And so I've done a lot of marketing research, and people are much more inclined to listen to somebody they trust,
right,
than to respond to a billboard or a promotion or something else.
Let's talk about your staff for a second. I've only heard great things about you as a boss. It seems like you really care about people, which is wonderful, and you really care about your staff, and you've given them this strong sense that Ben is right behind me. He's supporting me, supporting my family, supporting me getting married, having kids. Talk a little bit about that, how you've done that.
Yeah. I mean, if you go back 15 plus years ago and to what was the goal, what was the objective, and it's really to make a difference in the world, right? And you can look at the difference that we can make in terms of, the environment and carbon footprint, but really we're about people, and we can have a huge impact on people. And it's one of the things I mentioned before the call about my father. I learned from him is that you can have a huge impact on people by your example, by your witness. And to us, that is the most important thing. We were blessed when we started the business. We didn't, we're self-funded. We have no debt. We had already been successful, and I'm not in this to make money. I'm not in this to cash out or anything else. And if you look at our stated purpose and the vision for the company is to help the people that we touch. And that starts with our employees. And so that means taking people that don't have the skills, that are learning, they're growing, and giving them challenges and putting things in front of them that they didn't know they could do or have confidence they could do, and then watching them grow, watching them learn, make mistakes. And one of my, we have several metrics, and one of my favorite that I've been quoting lately is that, most of the people here that have been here for a while, they've grown in their careers, and their income is double, triple. We've got some people that are making 5 times more today than they were when they started. And end of year, we do a party, and we go over a lot of the metrics. And the 3 favorite metrics is how many people were married, how many babies were born, and how many people bought their first home. And it's pretty cool. And buying a home for a young family now in California is hard.
Yeah, it sure is.
But,
Yeah.
That's kind of our goal, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to matter.
Yeah.
That we can have an impact on people. And my wife and I are heavily involved in our church, and we believe that core family values are really important. And there's so much going wrong with this world.
Yeah.
And we believe that having a strong family that stays together and that teaches their children accountability, respect, dignity, that can have a big impact on this planet.
Yeah, it sure can. It's absolutely refreshing to hear you say that. And the company, your company has run programs for underserved youth, neurodiverse children, faith-based and spiritual communities. Can you talk about a few of those? I know you had the Heart of LA project, Switzer Learning Center, your church project. Talk a little bit about some of these.
Yeah.
Amplify what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, you get, my mother used to say there's 2 types of people. There's people that are takers and people that are givers. And the takers are never satisfied. They're never happy, right? Because they're always taking and they always want more. And they have an insatiable appetite. But those that give are blessed with so much more. And we were always taught to give back. Volunteer your time, your talents, your treasure, and always give back, whether it's your church or your neighbor or your community or your fellow man. And the more you give, the more you receive. And so when we do these things, we're doing it because it's the right thing to do, but we're also teaching a lot of our employees what it means to give. And so we get involved in a lot of different fundraisers. There's several more than what you mentioned, but it's kind of interesting because you kind of take it for granted that, my family, I was taught to give and to give back, and my parents led by example. But there's a lot of people that they've never been trained on that, and I've had some degreed engineers that, they asked me, they said, Ben, what is a fundraiser? And I explained it. Well, this is what they do. Well, doesn't the government take care of all that stuff? And I'm like, yeah, but sometimes it's more efficient if we do it. And so to me, what a blessing to be able to teach people how to do that. And so there's a fundraiser that we're doing, and we've got teams competing, and it's a bike-a-thon. And now I've got, all the employees volunteering, and it's a relay, and, and they're all excited about it. And then we do Christmas project, and we prepare, gift baskets for people that are less fortunate, because we're all blessed, and some more than others. But if you can give back, then you just become so much more fulfilled. And so we try and embed that into our culture and into our actions and everything we do.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, with the, I know that you're working with a lot of mega homes,
Yep.
very, very large properties. How does that fit in with this vision, or is that just one of the sort of the sectors of your activity that you've got going?
Yeah, so I always wrestle with that a little bit because I believe in social justice,
Yeah.
and there's sometimes the people that have the most can 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 benefit more from solar and batteries on those systems. And so I wrestled with that a little bit. The reason that we got into it, into the mega home and mostly new construction, is because it was always challenging and it was always a difficult project. And so a lot of the larger residential solar companies, they want volume. And when you do volume, you've got to do the same thing, rinse and repeat. And they don't want to do anything that's outside of the norms. And we like to do difficult things, right? Like that doctor in the Arabian Peninsula. This photo, you should pull it up, was 1994. The photo was probably before that. There was a doctor who did something really difficult. He didn't have a Radio Shack. He went and assembled a solar and battery system for a camel to provide refrigeration for his medicine. And that was a challenge. And I was always taught, do things that are hard, that nobody else wants to do or can do. And if you can do that well, then you've got a key differentiator. And with all the solar companies swimming in one direction and all going cheap, 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 mass volume, we went another direction. And it's been a huge part of our success, is that we do these difficult homes.
Mm-hmm.
And they're complicated. They're three-phase. We have some homes that have three-phase 2,000 amp 480 volt services, and they have some pretty challenging requirements. Requires a lot of unique engineering and different equipment, and nobody else can do it. They can, but nobody else wants to do it.
Yeah.
So we like it because it's a technical challenge. And I love to give employees challenges, do something nobody else can do.
Are you excited about integrating electric vehicles into our households, in our household electrical systems? And
I think it's huge. I think it's a great idea. You've got, the average car is parked 95% of the time, and it's an underutilized asset. I'm a firm believer in efficiency of resources. And so you've got all these car batteries sitting in garages and parking lots 95% of the time. It's a huge waste. I think that there's going to be a challenge with the auto industry because they're building a car that's meant to drive, and they're not factoring that battery into that life cycle case. But I think that'll change. But there's huge inefficiencies in the electric grid as it stands. Whatever you can do to flatten that duck curve will help optimize the grid and help save everybody a lot of money. And having all these car batteries out there that aren't utilized, that's a massive opportunity for efficiency gains.
It sure is. And we have a couple electric vehicles here, and we've got about 130 kilowatt hours of energy in the tank, so to speak, mixing metaphors. That compares to a Tesla Powerwall with 13 and a half kilowatt hours. We've got 10 Powerwalls that's just sitting there. How long do you think it'll be before we really can tap into our cars?
I don't know. I remember hearing about vehicle to grid before I started Xero Solar, probably 18, 19 years ago. And I remember thinking, this is a great idea. And I remember one of my other favorite sayings is, it's a technology of tomorrow, and it always will be, because tomorrow never comes.
Right.
But I'm hopeful. I think that we are future proofing some of our installations to try and enable that. I think that there's a lot of other opportunities where maybe you can take cars and just move power from one silo to another. We did that in last January. We were moving power from a Macy's or from our own shop in a truck to somebody that had flat batteries, and we were filling up their batteries.
Yeah.
And so there's all sorts of different ideas out there. Yeah, I probably should spend more time on helping to facilitate that. I'd be willing to, give some of my ideas.
Yeah, it's really exciting to think that your car could have a day job, so to speak, like we say,
Yeah.
give batteries a day job. Last couple questions. I don't want to leave the interview with asking you how you came up with the name Xero Solar, and Xero Solar in your case is spelled with an X. And
Yeah.
of course, I looked it up, and zero is a Greek word for dry or arid or withered. I don't think that's where you're coming from.
I didn't even know that. I never looked it up.
I know there's a shoe company with your name. There's a software with your name on it.
Yeah.
But well, how did you come up with the name Xero? I mean,
the software company's a little interesting, but so when I was in the semiconductor space, I spent the last several years in doing strategic investing. For lack of a better word, we were making investments in different companies, competing against venture capital people. And one of the companies we looked at was a company called Xero, and they spelled it with an X. And I thought, that's interesting. And I have a godson named Xavier, spelled with an X. And I remembered in marketing, they said, it's easier to make a logo out of an X or an O or a T. Don't pick a G or a Q, or an R. It's hard to make a logo. You want to have, a letter that's easy to make a logo. And then my daughter said to me, we were looking at different names, and she said, what about Xero Solar? And she spelled it with a Z. And I was like, the light bulb went off. Zero with an X. Yeah. It's a no-brainer. And then the logo, if you see our logo, it looks like the rays of light from the sun. And it was like one of those things, when you see it, you know it. So as soon as we came up with it, we just knew that was it. And I went and registered the domain, and I registered Xero Solar. It was available. Nobody got it. And then I thought, well, maybe it will become Xero Energy or Xero Finance or Xero Engineering. So I said, maybe I'll go for the Xero.com. And it was available. And then I went and I thought about it. I said, I think I'll grab that one. I went back to grab it, and it was gone.
Oh,
and there was an accounting company out of New Zealand called Xero Accounting, and they grabbed it. And so they was literally the same time. They're now worth $1 billion or more.
Yeah.
So they've had a different trajectory than we have. But that was kind of, but the Xero, it was never a doubt as soon as we did it.
Yeah. And it's a great name. Great name. Great name. Last question. I really appreciate everything you said about volunteering and what your mother said about the givers and the takers. I've always thought there's the farmers and the thieves. Same basic concept. But I want to just talk a little bit about balance. You achieved a wonderful family. You've been married forever. You've got 5 kids. You're involved with your church. You're volunteering. You got a great staff, a great company. And I know there's something I want to leave the audience with, and that is you like to paddle and you like to get out on the ocean. And I guess you just work that body. And are you racing these outriggers, or what are you doing?
Yeah. So you're talking about the kids. I have my oldest granddaughter is 9 years old. And right when she was born, I was about 55 pounds heavier than I am today. And I said, I need to do something to get in shape. So I joined this outrigger club. And it's a great combination of technique, endurance, stamina, competitiveness, and just the whole
teamwork. Yeah.
And I love it. and hopefully we'll go out today. I try and go out 4, 5, 6 times a week, and you paddle out of Redondo. You go directly due west 3 to 5 miles. You turn around and you look back, and there's LA, and you're out there on your own, in your own thoughts, and it's incredible meditation. But we do compete. We race all over the place. We race in Australia. We race in Europe, all up and down California. And it feeds my competitive desire. We have a saying before the race. Every race, we're like, hey, look, just do your best, have a good time, don't get hurt, but make sure you win. Yeah. And
Hey,
so
Ben.
it's a great group of guys, and I'm in the golden over 60s team, and it's competitive. I got to work hard to keep my seat.
Thanks for being on the podcast, Ben.
Yeah, thank you, Ted.
Really enjoyed the conversation.
All right, we'll get together in person hopefully soon.
Let's do. That's it. Thanks for listening to Flanigan's Ecologic. We'll see you next time.